Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's Anastasia from Australian Business Ubiz blog. How's everyone going? Tonight is, I call it a movie night. Well, Tuesday special with someone special in the field, with an expert, a brilliant filmmaker, and also a film production company and independent artist community. It's an indie production. Hi, Itai. How are you going?
Hello, Anastasia. How are you?
Good, good. Look, we briefly talked about it. I always thought that you're a bit of a mysterious man because you're creating great content and movies, and in particular short movies as well. And basically, for everyone who have never heard about Itai, so it's a pretty much my indie production. So it's a
Mhm.
basically film production company, right? For the
Yes.
starters. So I know you're also filmmaker, which is absolutely incredible.
hmm
So, and I want to know what was your passion and what was your turning point one day when you decided to become a filmmaker and you decided to create my indie production company? How did you decide that? Where did it
Well,
come
those
from?
those were two separate occasions.
Yeah.
Yeah, deciding to be a filmmaker was, I don't even know if to call it a decision. I
Yep.
think it just kind of happened, and I almost felt like I had to go in that direction. I was always a film fan. When I was younger, I always knew all the actors and, very obscure ones as well. I just knew things other people didn't about film because I used to watch films all the time. Um, I just loved it. And like my mother especially always thought I would go in that direction in some way. And as I kind of grew up, I realized, just from hearing people talk and how anything to do with art was always so difficult, I was sort of pushed away from the art. So when I finished school, I actually went into business school. So my bachelor's degree is actually in business. But I kept watching films and I always had ideas, and I wrote a lot of short stories and all kinds of, ideas for films. And I always thought maybe I'll write a book, or maybe I'll become a film critic, or maybe I'll do this and that. And at some stage, a friend of mine here in Australia, a good friend of mine who was also a fan, said, "Why don't we write a script together, just for fun?" And I said, "Okay, we'll write a script. What are we going to do with it?" And he said, "Why don't we just make it? Make a short film?" And I thought, you know what? Why not? So we wrote a script. He was more interested in the producing side. So he was the producer, I was the director, and we went around and we found crew. This was about 2004, 2005. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we just found people who will help out. And basically, for like $500, we made a short film.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that after making that film, it just kind of dawned on me that, whether I like it or not, I have all these stories in my head that want to come out. And if I don't follow through with that, I will probably just go nuts. So for my own sanity, I think I went into filmmaking. I decided to sort of explore it a bit more. And I left Australia and moved back to Israel, which is where I'm originally from, in about 2009, 2010. And I had a bit of free time there, and I thought, why don't I go back to uni and study something? And I thought, why not film? So
Yeah.
that was the start of it. I completed a master's degree in filmmaking, film and TV. And yeah, from there, once I was in film school, I decided to start the production company that was in my head for a long time. And yeah, and I started my indie productions, and yeah, been going strong since. So yeah,
Yeah. My indie production.
the production company.
My indie production. I like that. My
Yeah,
indie
yeah.
production. I like the name of it. My indie production.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about the story, and
Mm-hmm.
I always was drawn and trying to understand what is the success of a good story. Is it something that you have in your mind and you're thinking, oh, this is interesting, it's a comedy, it's a horror, it's something else? Is
Mm-hmm.
it something you're thinking when you're creating the story? Do you think about other people, or you thinking how you feel? So what is actually success of the story that is going to be spread out and everybody's going to watch it, in your opinion? as a filmmaker, as an expert in the field, what do you think? What's the key to success?
When you say thinking about other people, you mean the audience?
The audience, yeah.
Yeah, the potential audience. Yeah, I actually don't think about them at all.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
yeah, because if I start thinking about what I think people want to see, it will not be genuine.
Mm-hmm.
It will be basically making something for, to please people rather than just make it a creative thing that comes from me. So yeah, when I get ideas, it's just a very quick process for me. It just something just pops into my head, and I generally see the whole film in my head, and then I go and write down the script. I
Yep.
already have it in my mind from beginning to end, and then I just write it down, for a full script, and then yeah, just try to push it to production as soon as I can. Um, so yeah, it's never been about pleasing the audience. I actually kind of hope that the audience likes what I do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but you never know. Also, my taste is very sort of varied. I like silly comedy, very very ridiculous kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I like some very deep dark kind of topics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my projects are all over the place, so much that as far as genre, and people who
Mm-hmm.
watch them say, I can't believe that the same person who made this film also made this, and I say, yeah, I'm eclectic. I have
Well,
a
I
lot of
actually
interests.
know, yeah, I noticed that because
Mm,
when I'm just sharing the screen, my indie announcement, a lot of movies are there. But if I go there and I'm a first time looking at your website, for example, I want to check the video, I want to check the movies out. The
mm,
first thing comes up on me, it's a bit of a thriller horror story going on. Like it's a lot of a mysterious kind of, as you said just now, darker kind of sort of stories. Or maybe
mhm.
it's a comedy, but like a black comedy, when it's obviously it's dark but it's funny.
Mm.
So is it true, or maybe it's not necessarily the case? Is it the thriller and horror became kind of sort of number one genre for my indie production as it is?
Not really. It's more about what comes out of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My views of the world, my taste in
Mm-hmm.
film.
Mm-hmm.
I love comedy. I sort of
Mm-hmm.
started, I think, in writing comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But I, over the years, I've become my one of my favorite genres is westerns.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So again, I wouldn't go and write a western right now because it would be tough to make because it's a period film. It's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
We're going to need more of a budget, costumes, locations, everything. So I've kind of sort of steered away from what is necessarily my favorite thing to see. It was more about what I had to say. Um, so a lot of my views on the world might seem kind of dark to people,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's just honestly how I see the world. I'm actually more optimistic than people would think I am. But
Yeah.
as far as film, I think I just love watching films that have like real depth to them.
Yeah.
Um, and generally, those tend to be more, serious, depressing, dark subjects than,
Yeah.
light-hearted kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As far as comedy, a lot of the comedy I write is sort of on the absurd kind of
Mm-hmm.
line. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just really ridiculous, and it's very much an acquired taste. It kind of depends, what kind of comedy you're into. If you're into absurd comedy, you might like it. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not, you're probably not going to like it at all. You're probably not even going
Mm-hmm.
to understand
Yeah.
what the purpose of it was. But yeah, it's that kind of thing. I tend to kind of drift towards the darker side of things because I'm also a big fan of subtext, and I like to kind of get what I want to actually say in there, but put it so it's not obvious. I'm not trying to preach to people. I'm trying to show them something interesting and take them on a ride. And if they pick up on the actual message behind the film, great. If they don't, they can still enjoy it. That's
Yeah.
very important to me. I don't like watching films that I feel are, preaching to me. Yeah, if you hit the projects tab, that's really where all our projects are.
Yeah, like
my
I'm
indie
looking at
project.
my indie project now, and the thing is, one of your latest projects is Revelation, right?
You might wanna pause the video because it's yeah,
Good. I
it
do
starts off,
actually.
yeah, it's
Well, but it
loud.
also tells you that it's loud
Mm,
and it's great. And the thing is,
That's
it's
just our
just,
show reel.
yeah, that's Revelation project. Tell me more about it. Is it something you started in 2020? Because you kind of keep crossing all the dates here.
Well, yeah,
2013 and 2000. It's like one of your latest. So I want to ask, what is that? What this
well,
project is about?
Revelation I started writing it sometime in 2017, and the interesting thing about that project is it's a feature film that is divided into four segments. So I had a treatment written for each segment. So basically, I knew what the script was going to say, and then I wrote the actual scripts just before we shot each segment. The
Mm-hmm.
first segment of that is actually Ivy. Um, so in 2017, we shot Ivy. We were going to continue and finish it. We actually went ahead in 2018. We shot the second segment. Um, it's called Faith, and I had the other two segments ready to go. And then that was all in Israel. We made it all in Israel. And
Wow.
then my father passed away here in Australia. So I had to stop production and basically say, okay, we'll deal with the other two segments when I get back. And I ended up flying to Australia, and I was here for 7 months. So by the time I flew back to Israel to get things started again with Revelation, um, the investor money that I had for the budget, they all pulled their money out, and I had to look for investment again, look for funding. So that took some time again, and in 2020
Mm-hmm.
we were gonna shoot in May. I flew from Israel. I actually moved back to Australia, so I was here in January 2020, and a couple of weeks actually after I got here, COVID broke out. So that production unfortunately got put on ice again. So it's on hold. Again, we shot half the film. We have half the film shot. We need to shoot the other half. It's just that there's nowhere to shoot it right now, where I can actually get a budget for it. As you can see, right now we're hitting restrictions again in Melbourne. So that's like such a big risk right now to put so much money into a feature film, that I can't justify it. I kind of if I was working on a cheaper project maybe, but right now you just don't know what's coming next. A production can get shut
Absolutely.
down at any time, and in Israel it's even worse. It's COVID, and it's also the dispute there with the Palestinians. There's a whole war going on, so my production would have been shut down anyway. So yeah, so now I'm not
Yeah.
sure when Revelation will be complete, but as soon as the world sort of gets restarted, I'll be able to do that.
Look, I just also curious because we talk about budgets, we talk about productions, we talk about filmmaking process. It's a huge. People don't realize how much work the filmmakers, the producers, they're putting into the movies. So it's not just the script. So we
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about the script. How do you find a talent? Where are they coming from? Like, for example, you want to make a movie, horror
Mm-hmm.
movie, say the movie Ivy, one of your latest movies I'm
Mm-hmm.
intrigued about. Um, so you have to find actors, right?
Yep.
You have to find location where you film. You need to budget for it. You've
Mm-hmm.
got the time frame. So how does it all work for you? How does all this planning around? I think it's full on and it's overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
until the time that it's filmed and you think, okay, now it's time to show the audience, and then it's silence and you're waiting when people are going to start clapping. Oh, that was great.
Or
So
not.
that or not. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole process from dot A till dot W, for example,
Mm-hmm.
XYZ.
Yep.
So can you just briefly take me through how does it work for my indie production? So maybe new talent can watch this and they can apply or they can ask you for help or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
How does it all work? Can you just take us through this?
Well, that's why filmmaking is divided into pretty much stages. You have your pre-production, and then you have your production, which is the shooting of the actual film, and then you have post-production, which is editing and everything that comes after. Um, After post-production, now you also have your release and distribution and all kinds of mess. That's sometimes worse than the making of the film. But yeah, and before you get into pre-production, you have to deal with development. So basically, that's when you just have an idea and you develop it. In stages, usually you go and write some kind of a synopsis, followed by a treatment, and then obviously the script, and then there's number of drafts for the script before it's ready for production. As far as finding talent, it's really, social media has made that a lot easier than it used to be. Everything is online now, so you basically just post a notice that you're looking for actors, a casting call. Yeah, and today with technology, you can also have your auditions done online, through something similar to what we're doing now, or through basically sending in taped auditions.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and again, it's every project is different, but finding actors and crew today is really a matter of posting online, talking to your friends who are also in the field, and basically trying to find the right people. In indie, it's highly beneficial to work with some of the same people over and over and over again if that relationship works out.
Yeah.
So when I was in Israel, a lot of my films had people repeat in that crew, sometimes even actors. Because again, they're such a joy to work with. Sometimes I know I can depend on them, and all the rest of that. So again, finding people, I think it's not so hard. It just takes time. Um, the problem is that a lot of indie directors, such as myself, we also end up producing. So we also do all this work, the preparation and everything that you have to worry about during the shoot. Whereas, in a perfect world, we would have a producer do that.
Yeah.
So that as the creative, we can concentrate on, working with our actors and potentially, with the cinematographer. But the rest of the crew can be, usually they would be more the responsibility of, say, a first AD, an assistant director. And everything else that runs around the production, all that worry and stress, and if things go wrong and solutions, that should be a producer's job. But because of where we are indie, and we can't pay producers to deal with all that. We tend to
Yeah.
do it ourselves, and that's why I think a lot of the added stress, that's where it comes from on a production. But yeah, people always ask me, like, what is my favorite part of production? And I just say, when it's all done. I don't like doing any of it. All of it is very, very stressful. But I think the initial idea is a great feeling, and at the end, when you have a finished product, is very, very fulfilling. And it's amazing that you can look at something that you've created. But all the work in the middle of it, it's just a whole lot of
Oh,
blood, sweat, and tears, really. Um, so yeah, I enjoy many parts, aspects of each parts of those processes, but overall, it is enormous amount of stress.
oh yeah,
It's
I could imagine.
yeah, and that's why a lot of people quit, because
Mm.
it's very, very difficult to stay the course. And it's even hard with short films, so features are a million times harder. And it's pretty crazy. But I don't think that many people would be doing it unless they felt that they had to, that it was in their blood, kind of thing.
Well, the
That's
thing
kind
is,
of how I see it.
you're not just filming, you're also helping others. You're helping others to shine. And this is when you're part of independent artist community comes along and on play, because you're creating movies, yeah, you producer basically, and you also inviting others to join you, yeah, and to be part of it. And like for example, actors, how do you find actors? Like for instance, can someone like with our artist here, a graduate actor, for
Hmm.
example, with no any experience whatsoever, knock
Yeah.
knock to my indie production to Itai and say, Itai, I need your help. Would you
Hmm.
be able to help those people and say, well, it depends. Are you talented? Do you fit within the script? Do you feel with the scenario, like the actual movie? How do you actually approach, like if they ask you, would you say yes? Or would
Well,
you say, well,
the the question is say yes to what? Because a lot, actors sometimes do come to me. The best
mhm,
advice that I can give them is just go and audition. Go
mhm,
look for auditions as much as you can, audition for as many films as you can. Any role that people offer you, take it. Paid role, non-paid role, it doesn't matter. If you're just starting out, take on as many roles as you can, and basically, pad that resume, get some experience. And yeah, and if I put out a casting call for a project, I don't
mhm,
ask people if they went to acting school. I don't really ask them much about their experience. I
mhm,
just have them audition. At the audition
mhm,
time, all I want to know is their name. That's all I care about. I want to see their
mhm.
audition, and from there, if they, fit the roles that I'm looking for, I would basically, call them in for a second audition and potentially give them that role, and then I learn more about their experience, where they come from, get to know them, because it's very important to have a relationship with your actors, that you can, communicate from. For me to, I've been asked before what my approach to actors is on the set, and I say, well, every actor is different.
Mm.
I try to find what the actor needs from me and give that to them so that they can give me what I need, you know? So yeah, so with actors, again, I really don't care about how much experience they have. All I want
This
to
is
know is,
something, this is, yeah, sorry. This is
yeah, go
something I
on.
want to jump in on,
Hmm.
because it's a very interesting point, because I always was interested in that. That's just, you said, I don't know, I don't care how much experience they've got and stuff like that. Do
Hmm.
you think that people actually can be trained to act, or be an actor? It's actually a natural thing when people are able just to do that. They don't need really education or like a bachelor degrees, or they just go on the audition and oh wow, he can, this guy or girl, they can act. You know, in your
Mm.
opinion, can you actually train someone to act?
Well, talent is one thing. You can have
Yeah.
talent, but you might not know how to use it. So I don't think it's spontaneous combustion. I don't think that somebody just comes into an audition and spontaneously, boom, he's a great actor. It doesn't happen.
Okay.
But you do see, but sometimes you can see something, some kind of potential. I think that actors are better if they go and learn more about acting, hone their craft. I don't think you have to go to acting school. I don't have, you think you have to go to film school to be a director. I
Hmm.
think that it can do you more good than harm, but I don't think you have to. But I think you have to find your own film school anyway. A lot of people say my film school was, the Blockbusters library, when I used to rent DVDs. That was my film school. And that's great. If you watch film and you study it and you learn about directors and how they do what they do, and you go from there and try it yourself and then learn, read books, watch more films, talk to people, that's fine. You don't have to go to film school, but you do have to learn. You do have to
Hmm.
hone your craft. You can't all of a sudden just grab a camera and run out with it and shoot a film and go, I'm a filmmaker. But that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of filmmakers out there today, or what, who would call themselves filmmakers, I don't think they're filmmakers. I think they're just people who shoot film on camera and then somehow edit it and release it. But they're not filmmakers because they don't really know the basics. They don't
Mm.
really know how to tell a story. A lot of people are
Yeah.
more concerned with gear. what camera I have, you know, how flashy does my film look. If you can't tell a story, you don't have a film. It's not interesting. Films are about storytelling. If you're not a good storyteller, I don't think you can be a good filmmaker. And I think
Okay.
Hollywood is full of them. You know, there's a ton of filmmakers who just are not great storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
They're more, um, skilled technically, maybe. A lot of them are, can make a fantastic looking film, but it's not necessarily a good film. It's just one aspect. So you really have to have everything in a film to, for it to be good. It needs to look good, from the cinematography, you need to have the good direction. So it's good acting. The great script is number one. You got to have a great script, a great premise, a fantastic story to connect with the audience. I don't think that the other things by themselves can connect with an audience.
Okay.
Although these days, maybe, the
Maybe
audience, the
can.
audience
You
is
never
not
know.
as concerned. Yeah, yeah,
Different preferences and different but look, I agree with you, the story should be there. Like if the story doesn't grab you, everything else is just fall apart. Like I 100% agree with you. And there's just
yeah,
so many movies when you just start watching great actors, wow, great cast, and you just start watching and it's just it, yeah, and there was no any story there. It's just pure, it's just flat. So yeah, I 100% agree. Your festivals pretty much screened all over the world, so United States, Canada, Kosovo, am I right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How
That's
did it
you're talking about
happen?
mostly Ivy. Yeah, yeah.
How did you make that happen?
I just sent it to festivals, and it was really, really well accepted. The thing was, Ivy was never meant to be a short film. It's a part of Revelation, and that's what it was, meant to be released as. It was never meant to be released as a short film. When we finished shooting it, it cost a certain amount of money and a lot of work, and I just kind of thought about it, and I thought, you know what, maybe we should send this out to festivals just to see how it will be accepted, kind of test the water, see how people respond to it, and then we'll have a better idea whether we want to invest all this time and money into finishing this feature film. So we sent it to a fairly restricted number of festivals by today's standard. I think we sent it maybe to about 50,
Yeah.
but it got into 35. So 35 festivals, and it won, I think, 12 awards. And
Mm.
yeah, at that stage, I was like, okay, shut it down, no more festivals. Let's keep shooting this film because people do like it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it was basically like we used festivals as a test audience, I think, more than anything. And yeah, it really really worked out. I
Yeah.
never expected to win any awards as a filmmaker. I just thought I'm sending it in just to see if people like it, if it gets accepted. And yeah, it did much better than I thought.
But this is actually award, as you're saying, like when you get the award as a filmmaker,
Mhm.
how does it make, like, is it supposed to give you some sort of acknowledgement, satisfaction that you actually done something right? So for you as a filmmaker, award, because you're saying, oh, I don't really, it doesn't matter. But I think
Well,
as a professional, you want to
mm,
get some sort of a stable, award on your desk saying, I've done this film, it's great,
um, a word on my
or
desk, not so much.
not so much.
It's no, but if you ever kind of, today people don't really deal much, not in my field anyway, with resumes or anything like that. But it's nice to have it as a resume on your, social media profile that people can see that you're an award-winning filmmaker. Um, Aside for that, no disrespect to festivals or anything like that, but it doesn't really mean that much to me,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I have seen some filmmakers and films that won awards that I thought were terrible. So, I think it kind of depends. But overall, it, I'm very, very humbled and appreciative of the awards, and with some of these festivals, I've become to sort of have a great relationship. and I appreciate everything that comes, but it's not why I do it. I don't really need the awards. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
about awards
Mm-hmm.
or festivals, to tell you the truth. But again,
Mm-hmm.
festivals were a means to an end. I had to test it somehow to
Mm-hmm.
see, and from those festivals, it's pretty amazing. There's like it's a whole world out there. We even my good friend Peter Angel, he recently passed away, and we actually ran a film festival ourselves just to try and get independent artists' work, shown, and to give them some sort of acknowledgement, with awards and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think there's just so many festivals out there that only
Mm-hmm.
a certain percentage of them are really doing it for the right reasons and
Mm-hmm.
actually have reasonable standard. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many that are just, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure anymore. It's very hard to
Because even
tell.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
go
even
on.
with festivals, like we talk about festivals, it's like one
Mhm.
of the platforms where you can endorse your movie. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
say, movie, have a look. If you like it, push it to the audience. Yeah, the audience can watch. Yeah, and they will be able to see.
Hmm.
So, what's the next step for the filmmaker? Okay, so the audience in the film festivals, they looked at it. Say we've got 200,000 people watched it in the movie. For example, I'm just
That would be nice. Yeah.
that would be great. It's probably a bit
Hmm.
of a over.
Oh yeah.
So how what's the traveling of that chain when the travel chain when, for example, the movie was 200 people, next step is million, next step is 2 million, next step is 5 million, and all of a sudden it's on TV. So how do you get there, like in the perspective of the filmmaker? So what you should do to correct that and to
Mm.
get that break to push it up, so it's like a balloon, you just let it go and
Yeah.
it's in the sky.
With indie film, it's a tough one. Every film is different. Every
Mm-hmm.
filmmaker, I think, has different ideas and different connections, and it tends to go a different way. Um, I don't think many people are really concerned with getting their films on TV anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's because again, like especially if we're talking about short films, it
Yeah.
might be shown on some of my films were shown on some sort of a show that had like a collection of shorts. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
know how many
Oh
people
wow.
saw it. I don't know how many people saw it though. It was shown on online festivals, but you'd
Yeah.
never know how many people actually watched it. So people tend to, eventually with short films, release them for free on YouTube or whatever, and then, collect views over there.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't go, viral, where it's hundreds of thousands. If they get tens of
Mm-hmm.
thousands, that's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think the problem is short films are not seen as a product, which is
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of filmmakers sort of need to try to get their short films on, feature anthologies that have it's a collection of short films as one film,
Mm-hmm.
or make features,
Mm-hmm.
because feature films, that's when you can actually start thinking about distribution. If you have a decent film, you need to get it distributed, and that's sometimes a lot more doable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and again, it depends on your film and how good it is, what kind of quality, and what kind of market. You've got film markets today. There's so many things that are possible. It's just that very few actually get there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a tough one. Today, it's a bit easier to get your film distributed, but even if you do, you're unlikely to make a lot of money out of it. You're unlikely to even get your budget back. You know. Um, so yeah, yeah. Break even is a tough one. Getting physical release is a tough one. It's just that kind of world. So today
Mm-hmm.
we have to get really creative, with streaming and
Mm-hmm.
try to find ways. And I think we talked about this earlier before the show
Mm-hmm.
about VOD. VOD is a tough one because
Yep.
people don't want to
Yep.
pay to watch one film, whether
Yep.
it's a short or a feature. So yeah, so you try to get it on, maybe subscription kind of
Mm-hmm.
sites, but
Mm-hmm.
that's also difficult to get people, to pay for subscriptions unless it's Netflix or, you know, Amazon or something like that. But even
Mm-hmm.
if you do get your film on Amazon, Amazon pay very, very little for filmmakers. So you're unlikely to make a lot of money from that. So
Mm-hmm.
again, yeah, it's very difficult to make money from filmmaking. You have to be very, very aware of the business side and really find
Right.
ways to get to, you know, distributed feature films and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and being on the right platforms.
So basically, with your like, I'm just looking into your website again and your movies and stuff. So, for example, if people want to watch your short films and current
Hmm.
projects, how can they do that? So they basically it's not free, right?
No, they're currently on VOD with
VOD.
a distribution company called Engerman
Yep.
Distribution.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Engagement.
if you hit the projects tab and go
Mm-hmm.
to where my projects are or my indie projects are,
Mm-hmm.
um, any of those that you click on, say if you click on the Ivy
Ivy. Mm,
poster, it'll take you to the Ivy page. So if you
okay.
click on that, it takes you to the Ivy page and see that link in
Mm-hmm.
blue.
Yep.
Yeah,
Click here.
if you click on
Stream.
that, yeah, it takes you to where it's streaming
Mm-hmm. Ivy. Yep. Yep.
on Engerman distribution. It costs a
Mm-hmm.
few dollars to watch that one. We
Mm-hmm.
also have basically two films that we packaged as one for streaming, which is Third Temple and Dolphin. That's
Mm-hmm.
a political thriller and a revenge thriller. We
Okay.
made them like a double feature, and it costs like a couple of bucks to watch that. We also have the comedy web series on there as well, and that is soon coming out as a feature film. So it'll probably be up in on Engerman distribution as well.
Well, you've been part of the Creepy Tree Film Festival. It's called Creepy Tree Film Festival.
Hmm.
What a name!
Yeah, yeah, that one, yeah, we got accepted. We actually won an award there as well.
Yeah. So, what's the criteria is actually to be accepted? So, like, they have
Every
to look at
every,
the.
every festival
Yeah.
is different.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have different lengths that are maximum lengths or minimum lengths. Some of them they have to be produced in a certain year. Some are more open than others. But yeah, with that one, I think with Creepy Tree, we had both Ivy and Dolphin made that festival.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Look, probably one of the latest last questions to you. Well, obviously, my indie production, like, it's very interesting because it's a short movies. It's just spot on. It's on target. I probably 15 minutes watch. Yeah, like 15 minutes, you're watching the whole
It
story.
depends
Depends.
on the
Yeah, like
film. Yeah, yeah. Ivy is 15 minutes. Dolphin is 12.
12 minutes.
But Third Temple is 28 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The Bruce Springsteen's, which is the comedy, that's going to come out as a feature film, so that's going to be 80 something minutes. So it depends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So basically, I always ask everyone about this, and
Hmm.
this is the time when you don't have to be modest or shy or whatever. What is like a 5 points of difference of you as the filmmaker, as a basically director, and pretty much all of this about my indie production, because this is your baby. Say
Hmm.
I'm Anastasia, I go to your website and I want to look
Hmm.
at the short movie.
Hmm.
And there's another producer, another website. Yeah. So, and I'm like tossing between you and him. So
Hmm.
the 5 points of difference of your movies, what's so really, really special about them? Five.
About my
You don't have
films?
to be modest. You don't have to be modest.
No, no,
Just,
it's not an issue. It's not an issue of modesty. The way I work, I tend to never compare myself to other filmmakers.
okay.
I don't compete
Yeah.
with filmmakers. Because I only compete with myself. That's how I've always worked. I'm actually very, very happy for other filmmakers to do well, to do better than I do. I don't really care. If I do better than them, I try to lift them up. That's what, the my indie artist community has been all about. I
Okay.
noticed that, that artists needed exposure because I needed exposure. I was looking for it and I found ways of how to get it. And I thought, why don't I do this for other people as well? Um, but yeah, mainly with my films, I think that what the majority of indie films don't have is originality. And I think that with my films, even if the whole concept is not original as such, although most of them are. I will at least find an original twist, on the source material, or something that it's referring to, or an homage to, or something like that. Um, and again, it's what I was talking about before, that it's depth. Most of the scripts that I write have depth to them. They are saying something. If you listen, hard enough, you should be able to hear it. The other thing that I love about scripts, that most scripts or some scripts these days don't have, is subtext.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find that in my films. And again, I try to make everything that I make as best as it can be. Under a specific budget. Under whatever constraints we have. I try to make it the best that it can be. I don't cut corners. It will take me longer than most people to make a film, because I am maybe a little bit of a perfectionist. So yeah, I don't want to release anything out there that I can't give it sort of my seal of approval. If I watch something that I've made and I think it's not good enough, I will not put it out there. Dolphin is actually an example of that. When it was actually shot in 2011,
Wow.
and I initially made it for film school class. And when I tried to release it as a short film, I had issues with the copyright to the music. And I was also kind of thinking, it's not ready, it's not good enough. Ended up putting it on the shelf, and only in 2016, once I really, got more of a handle on how to work with festivals and all that, actually brought it back into the editing room, re-edited the film, remade the music, and I released it to festivals. And it's won, like, I don't know, something like 7 awards, and made it into a lot of almost every festival it was sent into, it made it, which was like amazing. I never thought it would. A lot of people, it's their favorite film of mine, and it's not mine. It's probably my least favorite out of those. I do love it, but I like the other ones better. So again, and that's the thing. You never know what an audience is going to like,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't think about that when you're making a film. You can't.
Okay.
I mean, you can, but again, it wouldn't be art. It would be something else. So again, it depends on if you see yourself as an artist or not. I do see myself as an artist. I think the art side of filmmaking is what keeps me going, and not, can I get rich from this? I would like to get to a stage where I basically just make enough money to live on from filmmaking, and keep doing that, to keep making more films. But yeah, getting rich doesn't interest me. So
Yeah.
it depends on who you are and what your motivation, is. So yeah.
Okay. So just one more question, because a lot of people, there's a beautiful word, three letters, art, and
Hmm.
everyone's got different understanding of art. It's like you
Yep.
go to museum, or you're looking at the beautiful art, and somebody said, "Well, I don't understand this," like, and some person will be just staring at it.
Hmm.
So for you, what the art is?
That's a tough one, because I think it could mean something different to everyone, to anyone. Um, for me, with filmmaking, I think the writing is important. A lot of films, there might be, an interesting idea, but it's not well executed. It's really, hard to define art in this sense. But these days, I think it has to have something to do with creativity. The film has to show something creative. It doesn't have to be every aspect, but it has to be in there. And originality is a major importance as far as I see it. But yeah, you know, some films just sometimes they don't have that much of a story to them, but you still
Yeah.
get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
So it's so many different aspects when it comes to film. But yeah, it's when it all comes together, you know it. When you
Mm-hmm.
watch a film and it's an artistic film, straight away, you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, with my films, I think at the moment it's sort of more on the writing side of things is where I see the art,
Mm-hmm.
and then again, visually making that happen, translating that onto a visual medium is yeah, juggling everything in the middle also has an artistic aspect to it. Even producers, I would say, are artists in some ways. But yeah, just bringing it out to something that you can, that you can look back and go, I created this
Mm-hmm.
from this
Mm-hmm.
little idea that I had in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so close to the way I envisioned it. It's an amazing feeling.
That's
And I think
awesome.
that's yeah, that's where you can, feel like an artist and sort of run with that. But yeah, I think that filmmakers who do it for volume, who try to make as many films as possible as quickly as possible, tend to get away from the art. They just do it to try to. It doesn't always have to be monetary. Some of them do it for money, and some of them just do it again for volume, just to say, look at my IMDb, I have so many credits.
Yeah.
But you watch their films and you just think, some of this
Yeah.
is just garbage. So it's a tough one.
Look,
But
I
yeah,
honestly, basically, with someone who'd watch it and watch this interview, well, the only platform where people can upload the link and watch the movies is pretty much your website, right? So it's
everything I have is on the website.
My Indie
Even
Production. Mm-hmm.
yeah, even link to our store. We
Mm-hmm.
have a store where we sell our merchandise, from T-shirts to hats to posters to whatever
Mm-hmm.
we have to sell.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually like situated
Mm-hmm.
not in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
but it's online. Yeah, everything is there. When you hit a project of ours that is available to watch anywhere, the link will be there. If
Mm-hmm.
it's not available, obviously it won't be. But yeah, anything you need to know, it's there. It's also we're very accessible. So if you can just email to ask a question, to get in contact.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook as well. We have a group as well as a page.
Yeah, I'll put in
So
all links under, and people will
mhm.
be able to click and watch and just watch the movies that they probably didn't watch yet or they wanted to watch. Just remind them there's more movies there as well to watch. And well, thank you so much. I've got
Thank you.
much more questions, but I think we're already 47 minutes talking, so it's probably
Oh
the long
yeah.
chat, one of the longest ones I had. So
Hmm.
um, thank you
Absolutely.
so
We
much
could.
for coming in. Thank you so,
Mhm.
so much. Looking forward to watch some of your movies. I'm definitely probably going to watch Ivy because I think it's just for some reason, it's sort of, as long as it's not too scary.
It's a little bit
uh,
scary.
definitely going to watch that one. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.